Hello and welcome back to the Counteract podcast. My name is Allison Lind. I am one of the hosts of the Counteract podcast. I am the New York City cell leader. On my episode, we talk about all things New York pop culture and just trending conversations. Please excuse my appearance right now. Your girl is back to being sick. She was just recovering or in the middle of it in her first episode. Your girl is back to it again. So if you're watching this and I look like I crawled out of bed, it's because I did. This week, we are continuing the conversation on what ultimately changed my mind from being pro-choice to pro-life. Last week, we talked about the gestational stages. We talked about what happens in an abortion at each stage. And we also kind of got into the philosophy of personhood and where do we ascribe personhood to a human being. And that's ultimately where the debate, the pro-choice, pro-life abortion debate lies, is who gets the right to live, who is given personhood by the government or by us as individuals. So that's a really, hopefully, enlightening episode, maybe for people who aren't as well versed in the conversation. Also gives a little bit of background on where my mind is regarding all of it. So definitely go check that out. And this week, we're going to continue that conversation and get into what is actually happening in the abortion industry, what the lobbyists are pushing for, and just the ways that, I've seen it just hurt women. So we'll talk through that a little bit. And then lastly, I'll be giving you guys the Christian rundown. What do we say about this as Christians? How do we talk about this? How do we do this with love and grace and truth? Why does it matter that we even speak up about this in the first place? So I'll get into that a little bit and it'll be a fun time. And hopefully next week I'll be back with some other fun stuff. Not sick, hopefully. Please enjoy this episode. Let me know how you feel about it. Either on Instagram or give this podcast a review, a like. Make sure to subscribe. It really helps our ratings because we be getting shadow banned out here. Now, without further ado, I'm going to stop talking your ear off and let's get into the good stuff. Getting rid of abortion hurts women. That's the next argument that we see. And it's a hard one, right? Because I care about women. You probably care about women. Most people, hopefully everyone listening to this cares about women. Maybe you even are a woman and you care about yourself. And it's an understandable argument because there is the situation in which there is pregnancy-based violence, domestic violence. There's discrimination in the workplace. It is expensive and taxing to have a baby. There's a point in pregnancy where it's very hard to continue working while you are pregnant. That's why we have maternity leave. So I understand why this idea of getting rid of abortion seems like it is with the intention to hurt women and to force them into pregnancy. But I would argue that abortion actually hurts women more than choosing life. The American Psychiatric Association linked sadness, grief, depression, and anxiety to women following their abortions, but they believed it was due to other factors. There was another study published by the British Journal of Psychiatry, you know what I mean. They found dramatic mental health changes post-abortion. 877,000 women were examined, and 164,000 of them were women who had an abortion. Those who were post-abortive were 81% more likely to experience the following mental health struggles: 30% more likely to develop anxiety, 37% more likely to experience depression, 110% more likely to begin abusing alcohol, 155% more likely to commit suicide, and 220% more likely to abuse marijuana. There's another study concluded after 13 years of evidence in the U.S. on abortion, substance abuse, and mental health in early adulthood. They studied 8,005 women ages 15, 22, and 28 years old. They said that abortion was consistently associated with an increased risk of mental health disorder, with an increased risk of 45%. This also was confirmed by previous studies done in Norway and New Zealand. We have a few other resources looking at factors for why women get abortions, what happens afterwards, like how does their lifestyle change. There was this Can't Stay Silent movement, which is where a lot of women came forward and said, like, hey, I feel like I was lied to. I feel like I am traumatized. I feel like I am having PTSD. I feel like I am grieving and nobody cares. I had physical health issues and trauma. I have experienced a deterioration in my mental health. I feel shame. I feel all kinds of like repressed like mental health issues and anxiety. It's a really good resource that I'm gonna not talk about on this podcast, I guess, but just look up Can't Stay Silent campaign. Ultimately, here's the thing. It costs probably about $500 to a couple thousand to get an abortion, which is cheaper than having a baby, but it is the ultimate income for abortion clinics. The profit comes from abortion, and it ultimately comes from telling women they are incapable of having a baby and being a good mother, that their career will be destroyed if they have a baby, that they will hate themselves and their life, and everyone will judge them and not be there for them. And like that narrative having been spun for the past 50 plus years, that may be the case in our culture today because it's what is told about women. And so I do think there is this like kind of this like self-fulfilling prophecy, right? That if you're telling women all this, then they believe that is the culture, and they're going to adhere to that culture of not supporting women if they don't choose abortion. And I see it all the time. I see it, like, I see this judgment among people my age that's like, oh, she chose to have the baby. It's like, girl, what? Why aren't you celebrating your friend for being strong enough to choose life, even though she didn't plan on it? And look at how she's doing now. Why don't you support her? Why don't you, bring her dinner one night, check in on her, ask if she needs childcare? Like, what is it with this whole idea that we're not going to support women for choosing life and encourage them to choose life? No, we just want them to get an abortion so they can keep going about their lives as if nothing happened. And we're going to celebrate that. I see it all the time. Shout your abortion. Within my own school, there's never an acknowledgement of like grief or like the real struggle of it, because this is a crisis that women face. It's not just this contentious, like, what if scenario. It's real. There are real women behind this, and we are telling them that they cannot be a mother, something they were designed to do and have been able to do for all of human history. They are not capable. They will never amount to what their full potential is if they choose to be a mother. That is ultimately, in my opinion, supporting the patriarchy, because what you're doing is telling them that they have to do the 9-to-5 cog in the, machine, work your way up the ladder to be valuable as a woman. And I just don't think I don't think it's healing. I don't think it's loving. I don't think it's edifying. It's also much easier for a man to pay for an abortion rather than pay for childcare or step up and be a father. And so I think that's a very easy out for men to say, yeah, I'm whatever you choose, but I'll pay for your abortion. I support your choice, but I'm only going to help if you get an abortion. It's a very common scenario. I can't even go into like my personal experiences with it, but pressure to abort is rampant in our culture, in Gen Z. Emotional abuse and psychological manipulation to pressure a woman to abort is way more rampant than we are aware of. And it's because abortion benefits the patriarchy. So I'm just going to throw that out there too. There's also no long-term studies on whether or not it's good for our reproductive health. I didn't have time to fully research this, but I do know that there's not a lot out there. But we have heard situations of women's fertility being affected, or even just their like overall cycle, and like reproductive health. We just don't know the effects yet. There's also a lot of unethical medical practice going on, including the selling of aborted fetal tissue, performing sex-selective abortions. The abortion industry as a whole is also just a main pillar for the sex trafficking industry, because you don't have to prove your identity or really a lot of reasons that you want an abortion or like things about yourself in order to obtain an abortion. Very minimal questions are asked, and that is because they just want your money and they don't want to make you feel like shamed, I guess. But what that ultimately is doing is there's women who come in all the time, fourth, fifth time abortions. There's young girls brought in by older men. And I'm not saying this is always the case. I do believe that, because they are mandated reporters, I do believe that a lot of clinic workers do not want to see sex trafficking prevail and will report it. But the nature of the system leads a lot of these things to go unreported, which then promotes the sex trafficking industry, or at least doesn't inhibit it. Because if a woman gets an abortion, she can keep being used for money, and she can keep any evidence of that abuse is gone. It's the same with domestic sexual abuse of minors. They don't always need parental consent, if ever, as far as I'm aware, to obtain an abortion. And so they can be brought in, any evidence can be eliminated, and they can go about their lives, and these cycles repeat. So I just think there's like unethical medical practice going on there. Lastly, abortion does not improve a woman's life. It may prevent her from having to take this alternative, more expensive, more challenging path. I will admit, I agree that a pregnancy and motherhood is hard. It is sacrificial. It is expensive. You need community around you. But I don't think that abortion is going to take away a woman's poverty or trauma or financial circumstances or any of the things that put her in this moment. Abortion is not going to solve that, because they don't check up on you. They don't want to walk with you. What does improve a woman's life? Pre-abortive, post-abortive, choosing life, whatever it is the love they receive from their community. Whether they are pregnant or not, that is what's going to change it. That's what's going to get a woman out of poverty. That's what's going to get her out of domestic abuse. It's what's going to get her healed from her trauma. It's what's going to change her life circumstances around so that there is a lasting impression on her life. I do believe that this is very possible and very beneficial for women facing unexpected pregnancy. But I also believe it should just be the case across the board, that we should be there spurring one another up in good works, right? And I also just believe that it is the biblical action of the body of Christ that empowers women the most, that gets them out of the bad situations, gives them the resources they need, and it's our job as Christians to fight for that need. Killing another human does not solve the problem or meet the needs. So, I would like to ask you, if you are pro-choice and listening to this episode, what are you doing to support these women? I'm not like, this is not to like shame you. It's genuinely like curiosity. Like, look into your heart and say, like, ask yourself, what am I doing? What can I do? Encouraging them to abort and then celebrating the abortion is just not going to cut it. The amount of older women who have come to me, even in the past 3 months, and said, if I had a friend like you to tell me it was okay, I would not have gotten that abortion. And that is so heartbreaking. Where are the friends that will speak love and truth into the lives of these women? Are you being that friend? Are you donating or volunteering? Are you researching the alternative resources for abortion in your area? I want to believe with all my heart that most women do not think that abortion is a good thing. But if that is true, then what are we doing in our personal lives to get rid of the need for it? Like, imagine if every pro-choice person donated to a pregnancy center or a maternity home or an organization that is devoted to supporting women through unplanned pregnancy, or supporting them to get out of domestic violence, to get them out of toxic relationships. Imagine if all of us were doing this though? Like, imagine what our culture could look like. We do not get rid of abortion by keeping it legal. We get rid of it by getting rid of all of the circumstances that pressure a woman into thinking that that's the only option. One choice is not pro-choice. And I just want to mention my own ministry that I work for, Expect Hope. It's a pregnancy home. And I've really been thinking about this lately because I'm actively watching this work in real time. These women choosing life, being uplifted, finding jobs, finding emotional support. We have counseling services. We have life skills classes. We are discipling them and ministering to them and loving on them. Most of them are coming from situations where, like, they were not loved. They're far from home. Some of them came off the streets. Like, you would not believe the stories that these women have. And they're here being some of the strongest women I've ever met and choosing life for their babies and choosing to be a mom and to like end this generational cycle with them and to step up for love and for life. But I've just been thinking about it because we can only house 5 women at a time. But imagine if we had 5 more houses in New York City, 5 more people who are willing to answer the call and step up and fill the gap for the need for these women. What would that look like? 5 times 5, that's 25 women. That's 25 lives, maybe more if there's twins. It's happened. 25 more women whose lives are changed lastingly for the better, right? Because like there's also that argument that pro-life people don't care about babies outside the womb or women for the rest of their lives. But these are this work that we do is a lifelong relationship and a lifelong commitment to seeing this woman thrive and seeing her ultimately step into something that we believe she is fully capable of and strong enough to do. So yeah, that's just my exhortation that if we would all just answer that call, like of course I want you to understand my argument and I want you to like believe with me that like why abortion is wrong and that it shouldn't be a precedent in our country. But at the end of the day, even if you're not going to believe me, if we all answer the call to fill the gap, like to not just say abortion or nothing, but to fill the gap and figure out how we are supporting women, really have a choice and really make the choice for life. Anyways, yeah, and my last argument is it's not just a women's rights issue, it's a human rights issue, and it's a spiritual issue because we are dealing with human beings in the womb, we are dealing with human beings in the women that carry them in the womb, and there's just so much more that goes into it than just like abortion or nothing. There's the religious argument. You're forcing your religion on us. You can pull, all the verses you want to argue your case, but I wanted to share some verses in the reality of the Bible, which places an unalienable divine value on human life from Genesis 1 all the way to the end of a Revelation. That is thousands of pages and thousands of years of God affirming our value as his creation made in the likeness of him, and his love for us. And you could spend a lifetime searching for what God says about life in the Bible and probably never reach the end because it is so full of it. Genesis 1, the creation story, shows us how intentionally God created us. He created the land and the sea and the plants and all the creatures that crawl. He shows us that even before humans, he created life with the intention of reproducing on its own. Then comes humans. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female. He created them, and God blessed them. We were the first creation and the only creation to be created in his image. He loved us the most. He gave us the ability to steward his creation and to have free will. We were created in his likeness with free will, understanding and relationship with him in a way that no other creation can have. Like, just imagine this divine, omnipotent being with power beyond comprehension and kindness and goodness that we will never attain. This entity that exists outside of time and who can speak universes into existence. And that entity is Yahweh, God of the Bible, and he wants to know us personally. He wants to know me personally and you personally. And he blesses you and says that you are good. Like, that is incomprehensible to me, and I just don't think it should be dismissed as easily as it is in culture today. And like he says, we're so good that even after the fall, when Adam and Eve ate the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, knowing that they will surely begin the process of death, God loved us so much, giving us free will, knowing we would betray him, that he would come down with the ultimate sacrifice of his son to take our place. Meaning his son was on the throne, Jesus Christ was on the throne at the beginning of creation with this perfect plan already in motion, that he would leave this holy place, this throne in the heavens, to come down to earth, to take on flesh, suffer the way that we suffered, so that we could go up there with God. We don't have to climb our way up. He's pulling us up through his sacrifice. And like that's how much God loves us and wants us to live. The thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. I came, Jesus Christ, that you may have life and have it abundantly. That is his promise for us. That is God's will for us. We can have the whole argument about whether or not this God is even real, but that is what I believe. And as a Christian, this is the foundation of our belief and our relationship with God. So we need to make sure we understand the distinct value of life based on what God has already spoken about us and the rest of humanity in his word. Well, there was this Jewish argument that came out right around the time Roe v. Wade was overturned, which said that God says we have life at first breath. And technically our first breath is when we are delivered out of the womb, because you don't have to breathe in the womb because you're attached to an umbilical cord. You get all the oxygen you need. So I researched that, and it's talking about Adam given life at first breath because he had no mother to birth him. So that means that Adam is the exception and not the rule for humanity, because Eve was given the ability to bear children, and that was before sin and death even entered the world. So we know that the idea of conception and childbearing is good. Genesis 9:6, it is also affirmed that God does not want us to die. He didn't want Adam and Eve to die. He didn't want them to begin the process of death. He wanted them to have eternal life. But because this process of death began, God had to put restrictions in place. So Genesis 9:6, whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed, for God made man in his own image. And from a historical perspective, this is like a very radically progressive treatment of human life, because before this time, like, it was just kill or be killed. But God came in and said, no. The wages for sin is death. He who sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed, because that is my image that you are attacking. You are insulting me by killing my creation, who I put on earth. Like, you're playing God by killing, essentially. We then see Jeremiah 1:5, very popular verse, coffee mug verse. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, and before you were born, I consecrated you. Meaning he knew every hair, the number of hairs on our head. He knew every breath we would take, every word we would say, every day that we would walk on this earth and what we would do. He had plans for us that we cannot even comprehend, and he consecrated us to that, meaning he set us apart to draw us closer to him through these perfect plans that he has for us. That's his promise to his creation and his children, whom he delights in, by the way. God isn't just out here like, oh, I guess I have to take care of them now. No, he delights in his children. Psalm 139:13-16, also very common. For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, what as yet there were none of them. Exodus 21:22-25. When men strive together and hit a pregnant woman so that her child comes out, but there is no harm, the one who hit her shall surely be fined, as the woman's husband shall impose on him, and he shall pay as the judges determine. But if there is harm, then you shall pay life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. Meaning, even in Exodus, they acknowledged life in the womb for what it was. That if there is harm, if you hit a pregnant woman and harm her child, and there is harm, if they die, it is life for life. And that's already putting children in the womb on this equal legal standing, because Exodus is the beginning of the law. for the people of Israel. That's putting children in the womb on the same legal standing as human beings. There's also the argument that like Christians should be pro-choice because we're told to love our neighbor. And apparently disagreeing with your neighbor is not loving. So I would like to ask, who created love? 1 John 4:8 tells us that God is love. And the 10 Commandments and the teaching of Jesus tell us that he is the arbiter of morality, and he's completely good, and he is love. So it's my inclination to believe that what God says about life inside and outside of the womb must be the most loving and good option for us in our lives. So you shouldn't argue. You should always strive for peace where possible, but you should also speak the truth, and the truth is equally as loving as the grace. And Jesus was the perfect balance of these two, and so we should strive for that as well. You can't have all grace and no truth. It's not loving. You can't have all truth and no grace. It's not loving. But you do, and you are called to speak the truth with grace for the salvation of our family, friends, neighbors, and humanity. And this last one I just really love, and I want to leave you guys with it because I want to exhort you. Ephesians 2:10, for we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. So my friends, if you are a Christian, if you have given your life to Christ, I encourage you to understand just how much the Lord loves you, just how beautiful of workmanship you are to him, that he carefully formed you. Even now, once you were saved, like you are his beautiful craftsmanship, that he died so that you can have eternal life, and so that he can just delight in you and dwell with you all the days of your life. That is the Lord's will. And not only that though, Christians, but we have to remember that because we are God's workmanship and that we dwell with him, that he has called us into good works, crafted at the beginning of eternity for us individually, that we would walk in them. So Christians, I just encourage you, like, find those good works. If it is in the pro-life movement, I really hope it is. Welcome. Find the good works. Find how to love the women in your life, to step up for them. When a woman has had an abortion, meet her with love, meet her with care, grieve with her. When a woman's considering abortion, speak the truth and encouragement into her life. Remind her that abortion is not the only option, that you are there, your community is there to step up for her, take care of her, give her the resources she needs, that she is capable, she is strong, and she is able to be a mother and do the rest. To have a job, to have a career, to finish school. She can do it. It's been done before. It's been done for centuries. She can do it too. And we are there for those women. It is our call as Christians to sacrifice and to serve and to fill in the gap that Jesus stood in, to serve those women and just take care of them and love on them. I really hope that this maybe changed some perspectives. I hope it made sense. And if you would like prayer over anything regarding this episode, please reach out. We would love to pray over you, walk with you. I would love to share some resources in the description of the episode where you can reach out and find pregnancy resources near you. If you can donate or volunteer, you should totally do that. If you are a woman and you're considering an abortion or you've had an abortion, just know that we're here for you, to love you and to walk with you. And that there is like forgiveness where you need forgiveness. There is love where you need love. There's grief where you need grief. And that's why I'm pro-life, is because I just don't think abortion is the answer. And I know there's so much more out there waiting for you. And you don't even know it yet. You haven't even experienced just like the beauty of bringing a life into the world and what you're capable of. I hope y'all enjoyed, and yep, okay, go in peace. God bless. See you next week.